And I discovered a lump on my breast on my own in my late 30s, still too early for a mammogram. I had no family history. I was actually listening to a podcast and they were talking about self-breast exam. I was driving and doing a mini one and I felt something that felt like an eraser. And I was like, that's odd. I had only stopped breastfeeding maybe a few months before. And I was like, probably just a clogged milk duct.
Right.
But I did make an appointment to see my primary care provider. And that led me to getting a diagnosis with stage 3C breast cancer, which is hormone positive, and HER2 positive, which kind of creates a little bit different of a treatment angle.
Welcome to the Forward Think Tank Podcast, a place of hope, inspiration, and education around holistic health and healing. I'm your host, Jamie Mazza, a holistic health coach, mental health advocate, and dancer. Join me as I share out-of-the-box conversations with integrative doctors, healers, and exceptional forward-thinking individuals thriving on the other side of their health challenges, as well as stories from my own personal healing journey. Thank you for tuning in. I'm so happy you're here. Hello, friends. Welcome back. This week on the Forward Think Tank, I sit down with Sara Stratton. She is a nutrition oncology consultant, and she is actually part of the Remission nutrition team. So you may remember Jen Nolan, who I interviewed back at the tail end of 2025. I am excited to share this interview with you because Sara is so kind, so sweet, and she takes us through not only the work that she does and how she got there, but she also takes us through her personal journey of being a breast cancer survivor and what that experience was like. She takes us through therapies she was doing, how she went about treating it, what was going on in her life leading up to that diagnosis, and then the work that she found with the metabolic approach and also her expertise in exercise for cancer patients. And if you've been following this journey for a long time, you know that that is at the forefront of what I value in a healing journey. To tell you a little bit more about Sara's professional background, she is a lifelong health enthusiast. She spent more than 20 years working in the healthcare space to help expand access to traditional and functional medicine while focusing on her personal pursuits of a recreational athlete and health optimization. However, her world was turned upside down when she received a breast cancer diagnosis at the young age of 37. Determined to keep her body resilient against traditional cancer therapies, Sara paved her own path to combine modern medicine with a holistic approach that focused on nutrition, exercise, mindset, and environment. Following her treatment journey, Sara pursued certifications from the Nutritional Therapy Association and the Oncology Nutrition Institute with a goal to help others achieve optimal health by understanding the importance of optimizing their terrain through a nutrient-dense diet, regular exercise, modifiable lifestyle factors, and a positive outlook. She is also a certified cancer exercise specialist, completing training from the American College of Sports Medicine. Today, years after her diagnosis, Sara is thriving. She lives in Northern California and loves to explore her local farmers markets, hike, lift weights, practice yoga, participate in Spartan races, and go on adventures with her husband and 2 daughters. Her personal experience has inspired her to help others eat, move, and live with purpose. Whether you yourself are faced with a diagnosis or someone you love maybe is faced with a health crisis, there are lots of nuggets of wisdom in this episode. Sara, thank you so much for sitting with me. I appreciate your time and your willingness to share your story with everybody here. So please give a warm welcome to Sara Stratton. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to share it. It takes only a moment. Share it with a friend. Let them know specifically, what you enjoyed about the episode. Let me know what you enjoyed about the episode. I love seeing people sharing because they are here to help people not feel alone in their journey, to know that there are, multiple ways to heal, and you can combine conventional and modern medicine and, the Eastern and more holistic integrative therapies to work together. And Sara's a perfect example of that. Welcome, Sara, to the Forward Think Tank. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Forward Think Tank. Today, I have a guest here with me by the name of Sara Stratton. Sara, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your time and your willingness to share your story and all about the work you do.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's fun to share my story, but also just share my passion and teach people a little bit more about the metabolic approach and empower cancer survivors or those just looking to live more purposely and in a more healthy forward lifestyle.
Absolutely. Yes. And I can't wait to hear, about your journey and, your story and what brought you to do this work. For people who aren't familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about that background and what was happening in your life? I know you yourself are a breast cancer survivor.
Mhm.
If you would share a little bit about your history with us, that would be amazing.
Yeah. So about 8 years ago in my late 30s, I was a busy mom. I had two young daughters. One was age 2 and one was age 4. I had a full-time job in healthcare, but more on the administrative side. And then
Okay.
also was a pretty active recreational athlete. So I've always enjoyed things like CrossFit and Spartan races and triathlons.
Awesome.
I guess I was trying to do it all: work,
Sure.
family, taking care of myself. And I discovered a lump on my breast on my own in my late 30s. Still too early for a mammogram, no family history or anything like that to suspect anything. But it was interesting. I was actually listening to a podcast and they were talking about self breast exams. And I was like, oh, I've
Mm.
never done one of those before. So I
Yeah.
was just driving and doing a mini one and I felt something that felt like an eraser. And I was like, that's odd. I've never felt that before. And having a young daughter that I breastfed for 2 years. So I had, only stopped breastfeeding maybe a few months before. And I was like, probably just a clogged milk duct or something. But I did make an appointment to see my primary care provider. That led me through the diagnosis of getting diagnosed with stage 3C breast cancer,
Goodness.
hormone positive and HER2 positive, which creates a little bit different of a treatment angle.
Yeah. My goodness. How timely that you happen to be listening to a podcast talking about that. You're like, oh, let me check it out myself. Did you have any other symptoms prior to feeling that?
No other symptoms. I mean, I thought I felt good. I feel so much better now. So there were
Right.
probably things that I was just kind of covering up by nature of kind of keeping my active lifestyle. But no, I thought I was the healthiest person I knew. Back
Yep.
to that thing, I thought I ate really well. I exercised well, and I just managed life in the way that I knew how to manage it. So I did have a history of different things, that I was working on the inside. So I was already seeing a functional practitioner for ongoing gut issues that I had. I had some recurrent SIBO and IBS that I was trying to focus on and figure out how to support my body. So I was eliminating properly and not getting bloating and distension. So that was the only medical thing I was focused on a few years prior to that.
Got it.
But it definitely came as a huge surprise, especially to be
Yeah, I bet.
diagnosed with like a later stage cancer, right? I was like, oh, if it's something, it's probably stage 1, right? How could it be anything besides that? But to actually
Right.
get like a late stage 3 diagnosis was
Yeah.
very surprising.
I can relate in my own way with it being more advanced. I mean, I had a tumor the size of almost our heads inside of my chest. And it's similar to you. If I had $1 for any time any of my support system, friends, family was like, but you're the healthiest person I know. How
Yeah.
did this happen to you?
Yeah.
Similar. Was active, danced my whole life, ate well. For me, I think there was a lot of stress and things brewing, maybe like mentally in the background.
Yeah.
And, a whole host of other things that maybe we reflect on in hindsight. But it's
Mm.
like, yeah, it is a huge shock when you have something that has gone undetected that long in our body. So tell me what came next. What were your next steps? What were, the tools and therapies that you decided to lean on at that time to help you heal?
Yeah. And so I, initially got in with my traditional oncologist who let me know because it was a HER2 positive breast cancer. They were a little bit more aggressive. And so we should look at treatment right away, which would be chemotherapy plus targeted therapies to reduce the tumor.
Mm.
But I would probably need a whole lineup of treatments. And so I did go through chemotherapy, then surgery, then radiation. And since then, I've also been on hormonal blockers as well for ongoing maintenance.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to come at it on what I could do for myself to heal and also to make the treatment more effective.
Love that.
And so thankfully I already had an established relationship with a functional medicine doctor.
Mhm.
And so I emailed her right away when I got the diagnosis and she got me in the next week, and I got in and she handed me the book, The Metabolic Approach to Cancer, right?
Oh, wow.
At that
Okay.
first
So that was your
meeting.
introduction.
Yeah. And she's like, it was a new book at that time. It had only been out for a year. I think people were starting to catch on to the metabolic approach a little bit more, but even herself, she was like, hey, this just kind of came across my desk. Like, I think there are some things that you can do, especially being forward in kind of your health journey, nutrition wise. And kind of, she initially kind of talked to me about ketosis and fasting around treatments, and things like sauna and, maybe some targeted supplements. And while she wasn't necessarily like an integrative oncologist, she knew enough to kind of point me into that direction. And then I kind of like took it from there, and I was like, okay, I feel empowered now. I'm going to be going through, a wild chemo journey and lots of things from there. But there are a lot of things in my control still that I can kind of like direct my fate. And so I felt a little bit more empowered than I think I probably would have if that book and that path didn't land in my lap.
Yeah. I mean, I love to hear that, 'cause it sounds like it was pretty seamless. And I'm also so happy to hear that you had prior experience working with somebody who understood more integrative and functional ways to help you heal, because it can be so overwhelming to people who don't know where to start, but know that maybe they want something a little bit more outside of the conventional care, because as you understand, it's like they only know what they know, and they may not have any idea or any insights for how to offer some suggestions around taking care of you or cleaning up after these therapies or intense surgeries and things like that are over, because it often leaves people feeling like, I don't even recognize myself and I don't know where to begin, but now I feel worse. So where do I go from here? And it also, makes me happy to hear that you had a functional medicine doctor that didn't shy away from the word cancer. Not that that happens often, but I even remember talking to, Janet. I brought her on here, and she's a doctor that I've worked with for, the last couple of years now going through this. And she said in the beginning, she had people reaching out to her because they were getting diagnoses and like, can you help me? And she was stunned at first because she's like, this isn't my area of expertise. Even if that doctor didn't specialize in that, but said, here, I have a resource for you. Like, what, it sounds like a little God wink or sign from the universe to say like, here, check this out.
It came full circle. Unfortunately for her, my integrative medicine doctor, her husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer a few years ago. And her husband was the head of internal medicine at the health organization that we work at. So very accomplished kind of medical doctor. And she's a functional medicine doctor. But it came full circle because then they reached out to me and was like, hey, he's going through this. We know you've been through this.
Yeah.
How can you help us with nutrition? And it was interesting working with him. He's like, talk to me like I'm a doctor. I've been a doctor for 35 years, but talk to me like I'm a kindergartner, because that's how much I know about nutrition,
Good for him for being so humble too, because I think no matter what we think we know, sometimes we have to say, okay, clean slate, let's start from square one and let's see what I can learn along the way. For somebody like that who's so established and had a lifelong career in medicine, to admit like there's some gaps in my learnings that, and the fact that that came full circle and you were able to help guide him is what a special experience.
It was. And there's so much to kind of learn through the journey. And that's kind of why over time I started learning for myself nutrition and other dietary habits and wellness and exercise. And then once you're in the cancer survivor community, people kind of round and ask you for advice. And so that kind of led me to, how do I further my education so that I feel comfortable and confident talking to others about this and giving my recommendations, not just as a patient, but also now as a practitioner. So what I, went to next was, how do I get the right education to be able to confidently support people going through cancer?
Yeah, good for you. I had and still do work as a holistic health coach, and it's kind of stunned me at this point. I feel like everything I knew about nutrition, I don't know if you felt this way, got like flipped upside down on its head when we started learning, with the metabolic approach, things about, a ketogenic diet and really limiting carbohydrate sources and, just even looking at cancer in the body metabolically, and then looking at all the other things that we can do to support ourselves. It's like, I thought I knew a lot. And now it's like, I don't know what I know anymore, but I'm going to kind of cherry pick and see what works. And I do too. I have people reach out to me now. It's like, oh my gosh, my cousin got diagnosed, or my sister, or I myself found something. And I find myself, so good on you for saying, okay, I want to go and get that proper training. It's something I think about, and I have the utmost respect for Dr. Winters and her work. And I've worked with so many metabolic doctors. I guess I feel like in a way I'm still in it on the journey. So
Yeah.
at this point, you're years out.
Yeah, about 8 years out.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at what point did you feel comfortable, and how many years out did you decide to pursue um, that career path?
Yeah. I think it was maybe 2 years out that I wanted to double down in nutrition. So kind of went towards my kind of more functional nutrition approach and
Okay.
became a nutritional therapy practitioner, which is more kind of general, but kind of learning about the body and the systems and
Sure.
macronutrients and micronutrients because there's so much we can do just by fueling ourselves in the right way. And then after I laid that foundation, I was like, do I want to support cancer survivors? Because, it can be kind of like triggering,
Yeah.
thinking and talking about cancer all the time when it's
Yep.
especially still so fresh. But then I kind of thought about it as like, well, I could go through the training just to learn more for myself, right? I'm my best subject and patient. So if I can, start to just go through more training to empower myself, and eventually if I want to help others, that's great. And so starting the cancer and oncology kind of training, I went through the Oncology Nutrition Institute.
Mhm.
And I would say kind of at points during that process, I was kind of reflecting back, like, I'm feeling kind of a little bit stressed about this. I'm learning
Yeah.
things that maybe I do or don't want to know, but I, sat with it, and then it just became more empowering as it became to learn what I can control for myself. And then also just like how much the general public doesn't know, that if they just knew a few nuggets of these things going through their own journey, like how much that could help them. And so I
Yeah.
really got called to what my passion and purpose would be, like what's the purpose of doing this, and calling to the greater good, like how can I help more people, even if it's like on a small scale, and then maybe if it's on a larger scale.
Great perspective shift, because I have definitely, as I just alluded to, like kind of felt that too. It's like, oh my gosh, it is a little bit triggering because you're staying in that space, and oftentimes then your own experience gets brought up as you're relating to somebody else. But I think that's a really good shift to say, what can I learn for myself first, and start there, and kind of dip your toe in, and now it's transformed into a whole career path for you. So amazing. Curious, for my own
Yeah.
perspective, are you still following more of like a carb restriction, ketosis way of eating at this point, this far out?
I'm just following carb restriction kind of, and then
Okay.
I go through phases of ketosis, whether I'm
Okay.
doing maybe a longer fast quarterly, or, after that fast, just trying to stay in ketosis longer to kind of get some of those ketosis and ketone benefits. And then I also, track my labs to say, is my blood sugar train balanced? If it's not, then I have to kind of dig into that area a little bit more and say like, okay, Sarah, it's summertime. You may be too comfortable with some of those summertime fruits, but I think in general, it's like low carb, very kind of nutrient dense, fueling my body in a way that like my labs reflect it being kind of in a metabolically balanced state.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it's good to keep an eye on things, as I'm sure you're continuing to do. Information is power, and it of course tells us a little bit of a story of what might be going on inside of our bodies. So it's nice to hear that there's a little bit more of, maybe not too much restriction going on right now, but it's more of like a maintenance, it sounds like,
Maintenance.
in a way.
Yeah. And, for, every different type of cancer and therapy that you have for that cancer has some nuances. So for me in my journey, because I went through breast cancer at a young age, I also had my ovaries removed because of the potential of kind of additional estrogen production. So that sent me straight into menopause before I hit 40. And then on top of that, I'm on an aromatase inhibitor, which further kind of decreases the hormonal production. But that comes with side effects. And some of those side effects are metabolic side effects. And so my glucose might naturally just run a little bit higher because I don't have the hormones to kind of help suppress it. So I might be more inclined to lose muscle mass because I don't have the hormonal benefit of the estrogen and the progesterone and the testosterone. My mind, might not have the kind of healthy support from all those hormones long term. So I have to kind of think about, how do I counteract those things
Mhm.
due to the surgery and also the medication. And so it just kind of gives me a focus.
Yeah, I mean, that is a really great topic to dive into. If you don't mind sharing some of the things that you are doing to kind of counterbalance what's going on in your body, because I know there are numerous people that listen to this podcast and people who are friends of mine, people I've connected with, over social media over the years, a lot of breast cancer in particular, and a lot of people who are going through similar that you have gone through yourself. And even just the idea of hormone balance in general. I mean, I myself am also curious because I am at a point where I was having some issues with my menstrual cycle prior to finding all this, and that's a whole separate conversation. But there's definitely, now that I've lost a bit of weight after going through a lot of ketogenic work, a lot of fasting, I know for sure muscle mass is lost and my hormones are all in a bit of a low state. So I'm like, how do I support myself again with, obviously being very mindful of what something like hormone replacement therapy could do and could influence in the body. And I know in your case, it's obviously different because there's a direct correlation. But if you could share with us some of the things that you're doing to counterbalance, because I think that could be really insightful for people to hear.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I guess it's just a myth in traditional medicine is like when you go to make the decision to remove your ovaries at a young age, there's no discussion of like what that means to your body, right? It's like, yeah, you should just remove your ovaries because they produce estrogen. I'm like, yeah, of course, but nobody was there to say like, but here are some of the side effects of doing that, 15 years before it would have naturally happened. And so, one of the things is just kind of like bone density loss, right? So bone density loss from not having the hormones. And then for me, extra bone density loss from being on the aromatase inhibitor. So that's where I use exercise to really put load on the bones through high impact things like jumping and weight training so that I make sure that my bone density isn't getting to the osteoporotic point. So I can continue to be healthy and have a long health span along with my lifespan. I just actually got my DEXA scan yesterday. And I, started the aromatase inhibitor about 4 years ago, and I've had very minimal changes to my bone density over time, which I'm so thankful for, but it's telling me that what I'm doing is working.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that
amazing.
is, it's great to see.
Yeah. Well, that is good news. Congratulations. I mean, that's got to feel like a big relief to see that everything that you're doing to help counteract that is paying off. And I know, of course, you shared you were very active physically before all of this happened in your life. And I also know that you have a certification as a cancer exercise specialist. So can you talk to us a bit about how you might approach exercise, maybe for somebody, one, who is going through some conventional treatment where maybe they're having a bit of a hard time being active, and how you would approach that? And maybe on the other side, somebody who has similar experience to you where they were physically fit, but maybe are taking a step back because of everything that they're going through. How would you kind of differentiate your approach with what you know and your training and kind of guide them in those directions?
Yeah.
If that's not too much to ask.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, somebody going through active treatment, just depending on what the treatment is, but if it's chemotherapy, we know that there's going to be some really kind of like slow days following chemotherapy. And so that's a good time to rest and just kind of listen to your body. But there's usually a good amount of days, maybe 3 or 4 days after that infusion, that you're feeling good for a while. And so I always kind of coach and counsel people to be active when you can be active. And if it's just taking a walk in the sunlight, that's good enough, right? At the same time, there is a lot of research that one of the best things to overcome cancer treatment fatigue is exercise. And so if I can get somebody doing a little bit of aerobic work, which is what the research says is the most helpful, whether it's, a 5-minute, little trampoline session here, or going swimming or running in the park with your kids, like that's all going to be supportive to kind of have the mitochondrial turnover to give somebody more energy through the treatment itself. I just do a lot of listening to where people are coming from, because some people have no experience with exercise and some people have a lot of experience with exercise. And then we kind of help just kind of create game plans. Like, what do you like to do? How can we fit this in the day? How much time do you have? And just make little kind of goals around that. And then also chemotherapy is very kind of catabolic, right? We see, people going through chemotherapy, kind of getting into more muscle wasting. So if we can do anything to counter that through movement and exercise and resistance training, that will just make sure that the person going through the treatment is stronger than otherwise on the end of treatment. So they're not kind of
Yes.
starting at such a bad place after treatment's over. So if we can kind of do a little bit of resistance training, it doesn't have to be overly taxing for the individual. Can you do some, body weight squats, while you're watching TV every once in a while? If you like to go to the gym, maybe that's empowering. And it was for me, even through chemotherapy, I did strength training, I did running, I did swimming. And for me, it was like, kind of your face cancer.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't, take that. See, like I can still do all these things, and so, I customize it to the person, but there is a lot of research on exercise being so supportive, whether it's cardiovascular exercise, strength training, functional training for your bone density, and so much more important, especially after treatment, just for staying in remission and resilience for the body as a whole.
Yeah. And all the while, it's also great for your mental health. So, I was so excited to talk to you about the exercise piece. I'm over here feeling like I'm rebuilding myself physically from scratch in a lot of ways. It's interesting to talk to certain people in modern medicine who focus on what they focus on. Like, for example, one of the original surgeons I spoke to, who I thought was going to be my surgeon through all of this, really scared me in my tracks because, I never had experience, of course, in my own body with a cancering process. You kind of think, okay, I'm going to listen to the experts. You're going to tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. And one of the things he had recommended was to not lift anything more than 10 pounds. And I'm thinking, if this man could have only seen what I was doing for a living. And of course, I took a big step back from work during this healing process, but I was working for a small business here in Jersey City, one of my dear friends, and she has a meal delivery company. And I'm lifting huge crates of like vegetables from the farm, like all sorts of things, like, 40 quarts of soup, like constantly. Yeah. And so I was in really great shape. And so for him to say that to me stunned me. And I was just like, oh my God, okay, yeah, like I don't want this thing to burst inside of me. I didn't stop moving, but I definitely stopped lifting, and then ended up not going with this man for surgery, found the surgeon who did my surgery. And we had met maybe like 6 weeks prior to the surgery. And he's like, listen, I need you to be as strong as possible. I don't care what that guy said. I disagree. Yeah. Like you need to be able to rebound back. Yeah. So it was at that point where I was like, oh man, like I wish I found you a year ago, because between not lifting and, the intensity that comes with the ketogenic diet and a lot of the fasting, I found myself, and I find myself even now, I'm starting to put weight back on, but I'm also starting to be a little bit more flexible with my diet because I know that I need enough nutrition to be able to sustain lifting weights and trying to build that muscle back. So it's really, like thinking about everything that I knew and then getting some sort of recommendation like that, I'm like, oh man, like that, it really did a number on me.
Yeah.
So
it's in general a great call out to everybody. Make sure that you get multiple opinions on things, right? Yes. Because everybody does have their own background and thought process. So it's like up to the individual as the cancer patient and their support person to kind of like navigate it. It's like, well, this person said this. So what me and my husband would do is like, I talked to multiple surgeons, and it's like, we kind of drew out like what they said and like, what are the pros and cons here? And so one of my surgeons I consulted with, she told me, you have to get a double mastectomy. That's the only way you have to go about it. It's like, that's what you have to do. I talked to another surgeon who was like, oh no, you can get a lumpectomy, and like, that's totally fine. Wow. Like what different perspectives, right? So then I remember I had one doctor that told me, well, since you had lymph nodes removed, you can never do the sauna again. And then I consulted with an integrative doctor, and they're like, you have to do this. The sauna's going to be awesome for you. Like you're young, you're active, you're not at risk for lymphedema. Like the sauna is going to be one of your one of the best things for you right now. So, it's up to the individual to really kind of like, make sure you get multiple viewpoints and kind of, think back and like, what makes the most sense here for me?
So important. I'm curious what kind of role your intuition played in all of this too, because for me, I felt bamboozled, a little overwhelmed. I'm somebody where definitely like too much information or too many opinions, too many cooks in the kitchen feels like overwhelming. It's like, I have to repeat this whole story to this person again. But I'm seeing now in hindsight the value in talking to those people and finding the right doctor, the right surgeon. It sounds like you were definitely feeling empowered, maybe is the right word, maybe not, by talking to multiple people and figuring out what felt right for you. So what type of role did your gut instincts play in that decision-making process?
I think a very strong instinct, just because I was also educating myself as I went along. So I think some people I think are in the point where they just want to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And I think others want to learn so that they can help navigate their path. So I was definitely in the kind of like learning seat, just reading a lot of books, looking at research studies, and then, talking to multiple different experts, talking to my traditional doctors, talking to integrative doctors, talking to nutritionists, and kind of building my own team, my own path. But I didn't take anything any one of them said as like, this is like what I have to do. It's like, okay, this was the recommendation. Let me kind of see what the research says, what my body, maybe I'll test it out, see how my body feels. But we're all such individuals, and, we have to kind of really take that into account. Like there's no best, experience, treatment path, diet for all of us. It's all an individual basis.
100%. And I love what you said just now, like, let me see how my body feels in response to this, because I don't think that our bodies lie. Our bodies are always telling us, although they can't always speak to us with physical words. Maybe it's, like a feeling of, oh, that felt really great, or I feel less stressed, or, oh, that feels really good on my nervous system. That made me happy. Like, or no, that's stressing me out. I feel, my digestion's changed. I'm exhausted. All these different things that come up in our body's way of talking to us. And it's so important to trust and listen to that. So I love that that was also how you were gauging what felt right for you.
Yeah. I think it's good just to think it. Yeah, listen to that intuition, that little kind of happy person on our shoulder. Like, what about this? Or is that right? Let's kind of critically think through it.
Yes. So with somebody who maybe thinking, and this is now I feel like I'm kind of like throwing different situations at you, and I'm like, how would she handle this? So I appreciate you just being flexible with me. If somebody were to come into your practice, they were looking towards the metabolic approach, but maybe were really underweight, had gone through some traditional treatments, but they're thinking, no, like I need to do the keto, I need to do carb restriction, like, but I'm also underweight and maybe like a little malnourished. How would you approach someone like that? Like, do you think that there is a time and a place for maybe introducing a little bit more healthy carb? Like how would you, there's so many other factors that go into this recommendation. I understand that, but how would you approach a situation like that where somebody's having a hard time gaining weight, thinking that the carb restriction and, the fasting is like the way to go?
Yeah. I think that's where we kind of start with labs, and it's like, are we not gaining weight, and are we losing weight because we're more catabolic and we're losing muscle mass? How does our blood sugar look? Are we, is our insulin very low under 2, or we're not gaining weight, but our insulin's still at like 8 to 15, and then it's an opportunity. I let the labs kind of help direct where the priority is. And, there are some people where we can introduce a little bit of carbohydrates if, they're not in such a dire need for their active cancer, and if their blood sugar lab markers are telling us that's okay. If they have an active lifestyle, depending on how they feel with different things, right? And so it's bringing all those different data points and kind of anecdotal kind of experience points into play. And I think with ketosis and the metabolic approach, I think a lot of people get stuck that they have to live there forever. But it's a tool, right? And it's a tool that we use for the right reason and the right job. And then we can use other tools along the way. I know even for myself, when I was deep in the thick of it, I got tired, and it's like, And it kind of, from some of my clients, I see when they kind of have been doing it for so long that it becomes a stressor on them, right? And so we might kind of have to play and modulate a little bit and just make sure that they're getting in the variety of foods that they need and the right macronutrients to fuel their body, what else is happening in their environment. So while the metabolic approach in ketosis is one tool, we have so many others in our toolbox.
Yeah, that's very well responded to. Thank you. I mean, I think, yes, like looking at labs continuously is going to show you such a great picture and really allow you to like dive deeper into what's going on and see how your body's responding to things. But I love the way you said it. Like you're using this as a tool. It is one of many tools out there that can support somebody in the process. So yeah, thank you for that perspective. Also, thank you for being honest. I'm at the point where I started to feel the same way. And sometimes I'm like, Jamie, stop talking so much about like your own, what's happening in your life. But it's the reason why I'm having these conversations is one, to learn and also to share with others who may be looking to support themselves in a similar way. It gets to a point where it's good to do intermittently. It's good to have the guidance of somebody who knows what they're talking about and can help monitor you. And it's also good to use your body as a gauge to say, okay, like I think that maybe I need a little bit more of this. I feel better maybe when I introduce maybe more starchy vegetables in moderation. I'm making sure that I'm active on top of it. It's everything needs to be considered when you're looking at something like that. So
yeah. And that's when I circle back to the exercise too, because I think we put so much emphasis on just the nutrient intake or what we're not eating, on kind of carb restricting, but there's so much metabolic benefit from building muscle, right? So if somebody's, losing weight, they're probably also losing a lot of muscle mass. If we can rebuild that muscle mass, those muscles are going to be able to intake more glucose, and that will help manage metabolism long term, right? And then you can have a little bit more flexibility. But if you're trying to introduce the carbohydrates without the muscle mass on board, you're probably not going to have a good metabolic picture going forward. So, okay, what can we do to introduce, and bring on some muscle on board? And that's another angle to kind of look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more, if you can, about your experience and what you learned that may have differentiated what you knew prior when you got your certification as a cancer exercise specialist. I know we've talked about this a little bit already, but there can be a lot of fear, I think, and not doing too much, making sure that your body's resting, but also, as you're alluding to, exercise is such an important piece of the puzzle. Were there any things that you learned in that certification that either surprised you or you think may help people think about exercise a bit differently?
I think one of the surprising things was just, especially around the research on exercise being one of the best therapies to overcome cancer-related fatigue. That's just, you would think if you expended more energy, you're going to get more tired, right? But you really have to ramp up that mitochondria. If we're just kind of laying around, kind of feeling sorry for ourselves, we're not going outside, we're going to be more tired. If we get up, get our body and our engine moving, go outside, get some vitamin D and sunlight, that's going to power us. So I think, being able to really focus on that has been helpful. Something I learned, not necessarily through the education of the cancer exercise specialist, but just through other research on cancer, is all the things it does for apoptosis and autophagy. So we want to be in ketosis and we want to do long fasts for apoptosis and autophagy. But doing a lot of exercise, or doing exercise in general, whether it's high impact exercise, cardiovascular exercise, that also induces apoptosis and autophagy in a similar mechanism. So there's lots of ways to get to kind of what that endpoint is for that cellular cleaning. And I love to use exercise for that. And then also just thinking about all of these side effects of the cancer treatments, right? And so for me, the targeted therapies I was on can damage your heart and your blood vessels. And so I had to do imaging as I was going through it, or they would kind of look at my heart and my organ structure to make sure I wasn't getting that damage, so that I could continue with the treatment. So that made me think afterwards, I need to make sure that I'm protecting my heart, right? And so how do I support my kind of cardiovascular output and my aerobic output and my circulation moving forward to kind of overcome any of that damage that might have happened during treatment? There's a lot of different side effects that we can kind of counteract through exercise, movement, even just kind of thinking about like surgery. Obviously, we'll have tightness or strains from the surgery, using physical therapy and things like that to overcome, any of those kind of surgical limitations as well.
Yes, you just said so much there. One, double tapping on how exercise, it is medicine. It is good for your mitochondrial health. It does induce apoptosis similarly in how a ketogenic diet and being in ketosis is going to help that. There are other ways to go about it with movement. So I think that's a really great point. I mean, we hear so much that like muscle mass is a key to longevity. So if we're not continuing to keep that up, then we're really doing our body a disservice when we look at a long, healthy lifespan. So thank you for that. Bringing up a really great point too about physical therapy. I have to laugh because I've had some really crazy surgeons in my history of the last 2 years. So the one I ended up going with was wonderful, was very encouraging, very supportive, encourages me to be active. But when it came to the extent of my surgery personally, there was a lot of collateral that they took out. I mean, they removed one of my phrenic nerves that controls my diaphragm. And I feel like I've been doing well, all things considered, because I keep moving. But I had to advocate for myself and be like, this is a whole new way of figuring out my body and how to feel good in it. And for a long time, and, I'm sure you can relate, and so many people who have gone through surgeries in these journeys, there's a lot of pain. And so that pain can really stress our body out. Things like physical therapy are great tools. And I remember my surgeon saying, "Oh, no, you don't need physical therapy. Just keep moving." I'm like, can we revisit the surgical notes?
Yeah.
Because you had, 5 to 10 pages of surgical notes and everything that was removed and all the things that we like probably maneuvered around. I was in there for 8 hours. How can you tell me that I don't need physical therapy? So, for anybody listening, advocate for yourself and even what you think you need. I went to his nurse and I was like, please. She's like, whatever you need. She's much more understanding. He's a little bit more type A, but learning tools for self-massage, how to move so you're getting that flexibility, because oftentimes after surgery, we want to rest a little bit more and be more stationary, but that's not always what we need to make sure that our body is continuing to heal. So, it's been a journey.
Yeah. It's like, okay, lots of nuances, but like, I'm sure somebody in that profession, right, is going to help take you to the right direction so that you're supporting your body in like the most safe way, right? And we want people to move, but we want you to move safely.
Yes, absolutely. Curious how your perspective has changed on life after going through all of this with your health and working with this, with people going through something similar.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that came out of my journey was doing things for a purpose. It's like, I think before cancer, maybe my purpose wasn't always like aligned to where my true self was. Like my purpose might've been like, I want to get a promotion. I want to succeed in this kind of professional life. I want to be skinnier. So I'm going to work out in this way and eat in this way. I want people to think I can do it all and I can manage it all. And so I go down into my purpose. The way I eat is to support my blood numbers and my metrics and making sure I'm fueling myself. And that's my purpose. And the way I exercise is not just slamming my body and waking up at 5 a.m. anymore to punish it. I'm doing it for a purpose. So I'm really focused on my VO2 max and building up my muscle mass and maintaining my bone density. And then just purpose with relationships, right? Who do I surround myself in my life? And like, what can I give to them? What can they give back to me? And so, I just kind of align to my purpose in a more purposeful way.
Yeah, so beautiful. And what I'm hearing too is, intentionality. You're being intentional with what you choose to include in your life. You're being intentional with who you surround yourself with, intentional with how you take care of yourself. And what shows, I mean, being 8 years out from this diagnosis, and, I know we've never met each other in person, but you seem to be, doing well, and you're doing this work and you're continuing to keep up with your health and your family and all the things. So I love that. Doing this work, being able to change the course of your career and focus on helping other people who are going through something that can feel so life-shattering in so many ways, is really special. And it takes somebody with a big heart and, the right mindset to be able to support people going through things like this.
Yeah, I know when I was going through my experience, I was led towards people that had been through it themselves just to learn from them. And not everybody knows that signs up with me for kind of oncology nutrition, knows that I've gone through it myself. But I think when they learn it, they're like, wow, you're, look at where you are now. And I think that's empowering for them to kind of say like, oh, wow, somebody else went through this like me and they are out on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a huge source of inspiration and comfort. I know one of the first books that I read when this all happened to me was Radical Remission. And I was like, this is like a breath of fresh air just to see that true healing is possible. That one little breadcrumb of hope to be like, all is going to be okay. And I can do that too.
Yeah. I know when I first got diagnosed, I was like on some of the message boards and groups. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was the worst idea ever. I want to educate myself, but those are like a lot of doom and gloom, right? And so it's like, I want to be educated and I want to surround myself by positive and optimistic messaging and research and empowerment.
Yeah. Yes, that is very true. I've had others recommend, you should join like the Thigh Mama Facebook group. And I did. And I didn't for the longest time because I was like, there's two types of people that go in Facebook groups and there's nothing wrong with any of these people, but it's like, what are you willing to take in and internalize? And I think that's important to consider, as you're saying, like you're being purposeful with so many things in your life. So like being mindful of even what your mind is consuming. There's a lot of fear and a lot of intense stories shared in those groups. And while it can be really nice to get some resources from, you have to cherry pick what you
consume,
absorb in those situations.
For sure.
What advice would you give to somebody who is newly diagnosed? And this can be somebody newly diagnosed with breast cancer or just cancer in general.
I would say take a breath. You don't need to decide anything right this minute. Build your team. It could be your traditional medicine team, your alternative medicine team, and do some research, right? And navigate like, here's where I am now. Where do I want to be maybe a year from now? And what will help get me there? And I think having a path like that will be really helpful, that you have that North Star to kind of work towards.
Yes. I love that. Visualizing the future and seeing yourself healthy and supported is such a big piece of it. I would love for you to talk a little bit more specifically about the work you're doing now at Remission Nutrition and how people can work with you. I will absolutely make sure that I link the site and, your bio and all of those things, but I would love to give you time to speak about how you work with people.
New Remission Nutrition, we definitely are a metabolic approach forward, but look at the body in different kind of terrains. So we focus on things like digestion and toxins and hydration, sleep and stress and movement, blood sugar balance. And so when I work with an individual, I'm kind of looking at their health history, what their goals are, and where do we want to focus to help get them to what their goals are. I customize nutrition plans, and some of it might be ketosis for some people. Some of it might just be lower carb, adequate fiber and fat, good protein. It just kind of depends on what they're coming in with. But we don't it's definitely nutrition forward, but we also try to build in mindset, emotional balance, exercise, just because all of those things go into us kind of being optimal and healing from the inside and really supporting that soil on the inside, that mitochondria. So I work with people one-on-one, and we, can be a one-off initial consultation, but we really find a lot of benefit in seeing our clients maybe over the series of 3 to 4 touch points to really say like, we have these goals, but you can work with anybody. It's about kind of like, how do we overcome obstacles in your daily life to make sure that you stay consistent? And if we, hit any kind of roadblocks, that you have somebody there to talk through about it and kind of navigate in a different direction and bring in new tools to make it successful.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think that continuity of the support and conversation, especially if you're early on in the process or not, no matter what you're navigating, having somebody there as an advocate for you and a support system and a second set of eyes and somebody who looks at all those things and can really help guide you intentionally through it is so important. So this work you're doing is just really wonderful.
Yeah, it's it's really fulfilling back to me to be able to help others and see, them maybe starting off in maybe a darker place. But because they're empowering themselves through the journey, it's great to see how they grow through the process of us working together.
Yeah, for sure. I bet. Do you think that there's anything that we left out of this conversation that you'd like to touch on?
No, I think the biggest thing is just empowerment and just, making sure that everybody knows that they are the captain of their team. They're bringing on this team, but nobody on their team, is the director of what they should do. They are the director. And so I think the more that they kind of assume that captain position, and if they need somebody in their life to kind of help co-manage it because it's overwhelming, that's fine. But kind of bringing things into their own hands is, I think, the best journey forward.
Yes, I love that advice. It's so good because it's so easy to feel like I'm just going to put my trust in whoever the first doctor is that I talk to, and like that's the be all end all. But, as we talked about in this conversation, it's so important to find a whole support system. Maybe you have somebody like you have your oncologist, your surgeon, maybe you have a therapist, a personal trainer. Everybody has their own specialties and everybody has different ways of looking at things. That's hugely important, and reminding yourself that you are in charge. At the end of the day, the choices you make should feel good for you and should feel right for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, this has been such a lovely conversation. I appreciate your time so much, and thank you for sharing everything that you shared and taking us through your own journey. I know so many people are going to be inspired by this conversation and look to you as somebody who's just living proof that healing is possible and feeling good in your body is possible no matter what the road ahead. Thank you for this. I'm really glad that I got you on here.
Yeah, thanks for creating a safe space, and I enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you. There's one last question that I ask everybody who comes on here. You're on the Forward Think Tank. Would love to hear what it is that keeps you moving forward in your life.
Definitely my family. So I have 2 young girls and a husband. And so trying to be a good model for my daughters so that they grow up and kind of have that kind of light, to keep them moving forward.
Oh, I have no doubt you're a wonderful mother. And I come from a family of 3 girls, so sisters are the best.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sara. This has been wonderful. I will make sure to include all the links for how to get in touch with you, how to learn more about you and your work, and the whole team at Remission Nutrition. So thank you again, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode with Sara Stratton and are looking for guidance and support around your health or healing journey, you do not want to miss this. Sara's offering 10% off a starter package at Remission Nutrition. Remission Nutrition is a dedicated facility helping clients optimize their overall health, both for clients with and without cancer, through metabolic nutrition and lifestyle consulting. Their approach is terrain-centric, focusing on supporting the internal soil of the body to promote wellness and vitality. They customize their services to meet your individual needs and empower you on your health journey wherever you're at. Recognizing that every person's path is unique, they meet each client exactly where they are while embracing terrain-centric, heart-centered approaches. With love at the core of everything they do, they are committed to helping their clients achieve holistic health and well-being, fostering resilience, and guiding them towards a brighter and healthier future. You can receive 10% off a starter package working with Sara. Clients with this package will receive a personalized health assessment in their initial consultation and 2 additional 1-hour sessions of support and total guidance with a laboratory tracking spreadsheet to monitor blood work, a cancer-specific report if necessary, and a bio-individualized roadmap of dietary, lifestyle, and supplementation recommendations. You can use the code SARAJamie10, that's SARAJAMIE10, SARAJamie10 at checkout to receive 10% off your package. Thank you, Sara, for this generous offer, and I hope you all enjoy. Did you enjoy this episode? If so, I would appreciate you taking a moment to please leave a 5-star review. Every review helps visibility with this episode to reach more people, and I am on a mission to help people learn alternate resources to support themselves in their healing journey on their road to health. So please take a moment to leave a review, leave a comment. I read every single one and I respond back. And of course, the most helpful thing you can do is to share this episode. If you found it helpful, if you found it entertaining, please share it on social media, send it to a friend, a loved one, someone you think could find this helpful. It means the absolute world to me. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening, and I will see you soon.